Horror movies took over this year's Oscars, and I'm living for it. 2026 was a record year for horror nominations, including 16 nominations for the film Sinners, also being the most nominated film in Oscars history. Horror fans were just eating in 2025, so I'm so glad the Oscars really reflected that. From the nominations to the ceremony itself. By the way, welcome to Tea and Popcorn, where we spill the tea on all things movies. I'm your host, Megan, and welcome to this cozy virtual tea party and movie club for the film girlies. And to wrap up this award season series, we are talking, of course, about the Oscars, the horror films that are represented in the Oscars, how the Academy was really showing love for the horror genre, but I'm also going to talk about my thoughts of the ceremony itself later on in the video. But before we go into that, let's go back to talking about the horror genre and its relationship to the Oscars. And this relationship is very complicated. Even though the Oscars had a handful of nominations and wins in its early years, the Academy Awards tend to underrepresent the horror genre. The Exorcist was the first horror film to be nominated for Best Picture in 1974, which is crazy to think about in hindsight considering the nature of this film, because it's so different to the typical Oscar-nominated film, especially Best Picture. But it does make sense for the context of the time, because The Exorcist was very innovative, especially post-Hays Code, where there was a lot of censorship on what you could depict in movies. It wasn't until 1992 when The Silence of the Lambs won Best Picture. And Silence of the Lambs is actually one of only 5 films to win the Big 5 Oscar categories, meaning Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Adapted Screenplay or Screenplay. As of 2026, The Silence of the Lambs is still the only horror film to win Best Picture. But slowly but surely, it does seem like the Academy is giving more respect to the horror genre. From the top of my head, I think about films like Get Out, Black Swan, and The Substance getting nominated, and winning a few awards. But 2026 is truly the year for horror films in regards to the Oscars, with Sinners getting 16 nominations and Frankenstein getting 9 nominations. We also got 1 nomination for The Ugly Stepsister for hair and makeup, and a nomination for Amy Madigan in Weapons. So let's dive into these horror movie Oscar wins. Frankenstein won 3 Oscars for production design, costume design, and hair and makeup, which were actually my predictions, so I was very happy that they won, and I think it was well deserved. Even though Frankenstein was one of my favorite horror films of 2025, I think the strongest aspect was the world building, and especially the production design, the costume design, and its hair and makeup. Even though my personal pick for hair and makeup was The Ugly Stepsister, because that stuff was crazy, but I am still happy that Frankenstein won. The first award of the night was Best Supporting Actress, with actually 2 horror nominations, one of course being Amy Madigan, and the other being Wami Masaku for Sinners. And Amy Madigan won Best Supporting Actress. And low-key, Amy Madigan was really sweeping award season this year, which was very surprising, but it was a happy and pleasant surprise. She actually wasn't a part of my Oscar predictions, but considering that she was sweeping, I don't know why I didn't add her as my prediction. She did win the Actor Award, the Critics' Choice Award, so it does make sense that she will win the Oscar as well. The Academy really does get cool points for that one, not gonna lie. And of course, we cannot forget Michael B. Jordan, who was nominated for Best Actor, and he won, and rightfully so. I actually attended an Oscars viewing party with a bunch of content creators within the film commentary space. You would think we were watching the Super Bowl about how hyped we were, and we were so hyped that Michael B. Jordan won. It was that lit. But definitely well deserved, and he was my prediction and my pick for winning. I'm glad we're starting to get more horror performance wins, and we got 2 in one night, especially because there was only 6 previous winners who won awards within the horror genre. And since this award show has been around for 98 years, that is not a lot. But speaking of representation as a whole, we do have to talk about Sinners. Out of the 16 nominations, Sinners won 4 for the evening. I really think they were a shoo-in for 4 awards. Ryan Coogler won Best Original Screenplay, being the second Black man to win Best Original Screenplay, next to Jordan Peele for Get Out, which is very interesting because they are both horror films by Black writers. Like, come on. The proof is in the pudding. We belong in the genre. Of course, Michael B. Jordan won Best Actor. Ludwig Göransson won his 3rd Academy Award. He's worked with Ryan Coogler before on the Black Panther movies. Black Panther is where he got his 1st Academy Award. His 2nd came from Oppenheimer. And he's been sweeping award season for score, so of course he had to get one for Sinners. And this is super impressive because he is only 41. And fun fact, he and Ryan Coogler met while they were in college, and they have been friends ever since. Another fun fact is Ludwig actually scored all of Ryan Coogler's feature-length films. So the loyalty is there. Collaboration is everything. Collaborate with people that you knew back in the day. Don't shy away from collaborate with old friends. Like, come on. And history was made because Autumn Durald Akapa is the first woman ever to win Best Cinematography. She was the first woman of color nominated, and she's the first woman to win. That is just so amazing. And the cinematography for Sinners is just absolutely gorgeous. A lot of people that I've talked to were really surprised that Train Dreams didn't win, but I'm also not surprised that Sinners won instead, especially how Sinners was shot from a technical standpoint with the IMAX cameras and the changing of the aspect ratios. And I'm just only naming a few things that really made Sinners stand out. I'm also not a cinematographer, so forgive me for my lack of technical jargon. But if there's anyone out there that knows a little bit more cinematography lingo, why Sinners stood out compared to the other films, please comment down below. The Academy just really loves this type of stuff, especially for the technical categories. Whether it be intentional or not, I think it's very poetic that Demi Moore presented this award, with Demi being in The Substance, a woman-centered film. I just think Akapa's win is just so amazing and poetic, and I just loved her speech. I was like freaking out the entire time. This award is truly for the film girlies, and it was during Women's History Month. Women's history was made. I just love seeing women win, especially women of color. Some other Oscar wins that I want to highlight is, of course, K-pop Demon Hunters won Best Animated Feature and won for the song Golden. And it's actually the second non-Disney animated film to win Best Song. The first of which was When You Believe from The Prince of Egypt, which is such a great movie. I love that movie so much. Speaking of Best Song, I really like how they chose 2 films to do live performances of the songs instead of none of the nominees performing or all the nominees performing. I feel like Golden and I Lied to You were the 2 strongest songs within that category, and they were really going neck and neck. Golden had a very fun performance. The audience had light sticks, which they often have at K-pop concerts, but the standout performance, in my opinion, was I Lied to You, performed by Miles Caton. Raphael Sadiq was also there, who was a co-writer for the song. There was a cameo from Buddy Guy, as well as other black musicians like Shabuzi and Brittany Howard from Alabama Shakes. Misty Copeland was also dancing. It was so good. There were so many cameos. If one of the film girls can list all the cameos that were in the I Lied to You performance, you would be awesome. The first person who does it, I will pin your comment to my YouTube video. Going back to K-pop Demon Hunters, I cannot stand how they cut off one of the writers in their acceptance speech. Writer Young-Han Lee had a piece of paper literally ready to say his speech. The mics were cut off. That was super disrespectful. But he did finish his speech later on the night. But still, Oscars producers, what the heck? Let the man give his speech. That was really the only big miss of the night. But anyway, another highlight of the ceremony was the In Memoriam section. We lost so many icons in 2025 and early 2026. And this was such a beautiful dedication. And I'm glad they didn't rush through it, and they just really let people mourn the losses of these icons like Catherine O'Hara, Rob Reiner, Robert Redford, Diane Keaton, to name a few. We lost so many legends. So I'm glad the production really took its time with that. There was also a tie for Best Live Action Short. So there was a few ties in Oscars history, but this is the first time since 2013. I actually watched all the live action and animated shorts for this year's Oscars. The live action films were very, very good. I actually watched the shorts with my parents, and we were looking at each other and we were like, we do not know who is going to win because all the films were so deserving. But the 2 winners were The Singers and Two People Exchanging Saliva. And The Singers, I am not surprised by. That was a very fun, cute, simple film. It's about these men having an impromptu singing competition within a bar. It's very wholesome and very funny too. And the film Two People Exchanging Saliva is a very artsy black and white French film about a dystopian society where people cannot kiss. I truly understand why the Oscars picked that one as well. In a short rundown of the big categories, Jessie Buckley won for Best Actress in Hamnet, which is unsurprising. I knew that was going to be the Hamnet lock because she has swept award season, as I've said in many a podcast episode. Sean Penn won Best Supporting Actor for One Battle After Another, but he did not show up to the ceremony. Speaking of One Battle After Another, they were the big winner of the night with 6 awards. They won the inaugural award for Best Casting. Paul Thomas Anderson won Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Director. And these were PTA's first Oscar wins after having 14 nominations. Andy Jorgensen won for Best Editing for One Battle After Another, and it won for Best Picture, which is very unsurprising, but I feel like a lot of people were hoping Sinners would win. Party, we were hoping that Sinners would win. And unsurprisingly, the win is up for debate, with some people comparing the win to Green Book, which I'm like, One Battle is definitely better than Green Book. No shade, but let's call it what it is. I've mentioned in previous videos that this film really did grow on me. At the end of the day, this is a satirical film. Even though it is played straight for a lot of the film, people think that Sinners is going to have more staying power. And I'm gonna have to agree with them. Sinners was such a cultural reset. People are making more references to Sinners than they are One Battle After Another, for instance. In internet culture, there's so much to dissect within the film Sinners because there's just so many layers and things you could dive into. I feel like Sinners themes are a little bit more timeless, whereas One Battles is a little bit more timely, which is fine, but honestly only time will tell where these conversations will go. And on top of all that, Sinners, a horror film, is the most nominated film in Oscars history. It's a great year to be a black horror fan. And overall, I am satisfied with this award season finale, and that the 2026 award season is finally over.
Thank God.
I'm sorry that this episode is coming out late because I was at South by Southwest and I just did not have time to edit and record. So let me know your thoughts on this year's Oscars. Award season might be over, but the film commentary isn't. So definitely give this video a like if you like the vibe, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on the latest video. And I will see you at the next party. Bye-bye.